Now we're going to move on to a slightly different topic because this is a frustration I know so many of us share. Sometimes we struggle with low booth traffic or engagement at user conferences specifically. Laura from Hootsuite is joining us momentarily to share proven social strategies that drive engagement before, during, or even after your activation. So let's dig in. Please welcome Lily Hootsuite to the stage. Hi, Laura.
Hello. Hi. Thanks for having me. Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming to my session. So I'm Laura Lilly. I'm the Global Experiential Marketing and Events Manager at Hootsuite. So Hootsuite is a leader in social media performance. I have been at Hootsuite for over 6 years now, which like almost 6.5 years, which is crazy. Time has flown by. And I lead our global event marketing team. So a little bit about me and my background. So my background in events, it's very diverse. So it's everything from publishing, that's kind of where I got my start, to CPG, B2C and B2B. So I've kind of seen it all. And, I feel that social strategies for your owned events is a commonly talked about subject. There's lots of blog posts, people talk about it all the time, but it's those third-party sponsored events that we're going to that social media should be a big tool in your arsenal for it. So I want to kind of talk about this niche part of leveraging social to drive ROI from your sponsored events. So let's get going. So this is the first question I ask myself whenever I'm strategizing is, how can we make it social? So social should not be an afterthought. Social should be part of your strategy from the get-go. If you're planning an event or your trade show booth or whatever, your activations, and then everything's all planned and you think, okay, let's get the social team involved. How can we make it social? That's too late. You need to be doing it right at the beginning. So in my initiation phase of my strategy, I meet with the social team right from the get-go. I give them my goals, objectives for the event, and we brainstorm together. And I will say this 1,000 times, brainstorming with them is the best because they're on social every day. They know the trends, they know what's happening, and they can actually really elevate your plans. So ultimately, you guys are here today to see how can social drive ROI. So the way we see ROI from sponsored events is getting the right people in front of your team on site. We all know that. So the key is to use social to drive your ICP to your activation. So your ICP is your ideal customer profile. So post-event is when we can start tracking what I like to call the ROI journey. That's where we tell the story of the MQLs becoming open opportunities, becoming pipeline, becoming closed won ARR. But we all know it is rare to have a closed won deal immediately after an event. It can take months depending on your sales cycle. I know it does for Hootsuite. So to get to that closed won, it starts before the event. It starts with social and driving that ICP to your activation. So as you can tell your typical ROI journey, you can illustrate it with social metrics like reach and engagement. And these strategies are brand building, which is a very important part still of marketing. We know right now in today's climate, our CEOs, our executives, they're asking us, okay, you did this trade show. How much close won did you get from it? That's what they want to know. So we can illustrate with social along that ROI journey as we're getting there. For us, it's like maybe 6 to 9 months when we're seeing better close won. But the social metrics can help with that. And so now I kind of want to go into some examples of how we've used social at our past events to get that right ICP audience in front of us, to get people talking, to further our reach, and ultimately see ROI from the event. So this one here, strategy, leading with social. So this one is our old branding, just before we did a rebrand. So that's our old Owly logo in there. But I really loved it because this was our social art activation at Adweek's Social Media Week. Our CMO at the time was doing a talk track about having courageous creativity on social. And this was kind of the first time this conference was back post-pandemic. And, everyone was getting back together for the first time. So we wanted to bring this courageous creativity talk track to life with social art. So it started with a blank canvas, people could add stickers, people could write things, people could draw. It was really creative and people were sharing it. So we started with this black and white canvas, and then it became, by the end, I should have put the final picture there. It was completely covered in the end, and it was really cool. And it was such a community building part. It was engaging. It drew the crowd in. Like for us at this event, almost everyone's our ICP. It's the social marketers at this event. So it drew people in. We had over user-generated content of over 50 public posts that we could see. And UGC is one of those metrics that can help tell that story of that reach. And, people actually took time to post our activation and to share it on social. And that's a great part of the story to tell. Another leading with social strategy. I love this one. So we were at Social Media Marketing World. This is another one it's really like the practitioner level, like the actual social media managers who are in the weeds every single day. So we did this kind of classic meme photo booth with a new meme each day. It was highly engaging for the audience and shared on social a ton. One of the metrics I want to point out here is our social share of voice. So another reason that it's great to be close with your social team. So they were tracking that our social share of voice at this conference was about 23% versus the event. So that means that we only almost owned a quarter of the conversation of audience engagement as part of this whole event based on our activation. So this is another great thing to share with your leaders, another social metric that you can, along that ROI journey, that you can tell. And, it's not only can you do it against the event, but you could also see your social share of voice against a competitor. So maybe your competitor is at the same event, and execs love to see, like, especially if you're winning the conversation there, how your social share of voice is coming out against your competitors. But yeah, I love this one. Each day we had a different meme. It really was stuff that would relate to the social media managers, and it was great. I loved it. So now you might be saying, okay, these social first activations sound fun, but my company's not going to let me do this. That's totally fine. What I always say is you need to lead with experiential marketing. Anytime you're creating an experience, it's shareable on social. So it could be something as small as a small experience at the booth. The whole booth isn't around it, but it's one thing. So if you're offering experiences to your audience and you don't have a social first booth, that's okay. We are going back to that same one, Social Media Marketing World. It's again at the end of this month. And I am not doing a leading with social first activation. We are actually just having experiential moments for people at our booth. So our overall theme for our booth is Hootsuite Heart Social Media Marketing Managers. So every single day we're going to give back activities for them. So the first day we're doing branded juice shots to fuel their morning. We're going to do these cool chocolate bars that are very Instagrammable and have a witty saying on them. On the last day, we're going to do the shoulder massages at the booth to try and get them through the final day of the conference. We're doing elevated swag. So, we have these really cool bags that are like the clear see-through bags, and the pattern on it is something that it just looks like something you would buy in the store, and the Hootsuite's very small. It's not covered in owls or something like that. So something people would actually want to use. We're doing, I know candles is always a hot one right now. We're doing some candles, but we're not making it just like a brand candle. It looks like a candle that you would buy at a boutique, but all the phrases and everything on that are very witty and, speak to the social media managers. So once again, creating another experience. So ultimately, experiential marketing is shareable on social. And I know all of us here, some of us identify as a field marketer or an event marketer, but I think we should all strive to be experiential marketers. We're creating experiences for people, and that's what's going to help draw people in. Now, sometimes you don't have a booth. So no booth, no problem. This is an example we did Adweek, Social Media Week, Europe. We did some guerrilla marketing. So the venue was so small that we couldn't have any activation spaces, but we brought our mascot Owlie and we did an homage to Dude with a Sign. And it was, super engaging for people. They wanted to get their pictures taken. It was hilarious. So we just started with the owl in the corner holding the sign. And then, as you can see, I just took a screenshot of the post we did. And we had over 11,000 impressions, 294 comments, 705 reposts. So this is a great example of not only was it engaging at the event, but it took that reach beyond the event as well. And it's a nice way is very inexpensive way for us to add a bit of Hootsuite magic and reach beyond the attendees. So another strategy, and this is becoming more and more used nowadays, is working with influencers. So this one at South by, this is Old Owly. You can see that old brand Owly. We rebranded in mid 2022. But for this event, it's happening again next week. South by is one of, I love chatting with other event marketers, because it can be one of the most challenging events to go to, because you're competing against budgets of like Coca-Cola. And how do you compete with that? But we did a fun one. We partnered with Brian Esperon, the guy dancing there. So he was the creator of, I'm sure you guys remember this trend from back in the day, the WAP viral dance on TikTok. So we collaborated with him, and he created a dance for Owly. We did a whole lead up on social about Owly's going to South by, and then throughout where we were popping up and where we were like engaging with other activations already going on. So we hit the streets of South by, we got people to do the dance with us. We had over 8 million impressions and 2.4 million views of the hashtag Where's Owly. So it was a great way to kind of, do something small, but making a splash still at a conference that is filled with noise. So I'm excited. Again, we're going to be there next week. So we'll see what, how we compete again with the likes of Coca-Cola. And then one more thought on the influencers is like, this is a kind of unique way to use them. But once again, bringing them to your activation space, that can be a great experience, or maybe they're going to be part of a happy hour you do after the event, and that you can advertise that influencer is going to be there. I just want to make sure that you want to have the right influencer for the job, and something that would resonate with your ICP to get them there. All right, and then some final thoughts. So always ask yourself, how can we make this social? That should be one of your first questions. Don't make it an afterthought. It is so important. It extends your reach. It extends your engagement. Sometimes at these trade shows, it's like, it's such a great vibe and you have such a good activation, but, not everyone's going to be there. But sharing it on LinkedIn, and especially the user-generated content of other people sharing it, that speaks a lot for your brand. And then lead with experiential. Like I said, let's all strive to be experiential marketers. I always joke that I can't stand the 6-foot table with the tablecloth and the pull-up banner. I'm like, we can't do that anymore. We have to have some kind of experience. Actually, like I said, we rebranded in 2022. I outlawed the tablecloths because I said, no, I can't stand that old-fashioned way of doing it. Let's have an experience at the booth. Let's, even if it's something great like that social art, or something small like some type of like the massages or something, that draws people in. A tablecloth, some brochures, and a pull-up banner, nobody wants to talk to you. That's not fun and exciting. Also, having these exciting events and something to do at the booth, it engages your team more as well. So really use social as a tool to drive your ICP to you. So very important. Ultimately, that's who you want at your booth. That's when you've done your job and your sales team can take over. And then you and your social team, you guys should be best friends, work together, brainstorm with them. They know what's happening on social. They know the trends. I feel as I get older and older, I never thought I wouldn't know all the trends, but I don't know all the trends anymore. So I always loop them into my initial brainstorm meeting. This example here on the side, we did this in November at B2B Marketing Expo in London. And it's called the reaction ring game. And so at this event, we had just launched our social trends report that we do every year. And the theme of that report was being agile on social. And so we said, okay, how can we bring this to the booth? And we thought, let's test your agility. And our started with like, okay, agility ladders, that's kind of, what else? And then the social team said, well, have you seen this thing that's trending on TikTok? And of course I had not, but it was this reaction ring game, and these rings fall at all different moments. It's so much fun. It's hilarious. So we got it for this event. It drew crowds. We had people lining up all around the booth. So it really brought everybody in. People were sharing it. People were videoing each other and sharing it online of them. Like sometimes it's mostly making a fool of yourself doing it, but everyone was such good sports. But having that, like for one example, there was someone waiting in line to try it and he wasn't even going to stop by. He was just interested in the game. Turns out he was a customer. They were chatting and it's like, okay, what's new with Hootsuite? Did it and learned about some of our new features, and there's a chance for an upsell there. So just anything that you can do that helps drive them in, tease before on social, get them to share, engage with them on social while it's happening. But yeah, it's a really great way to bring more life to these trade shows. And I always think you want to have some kind of experience that people will remember, and they'll be, remember that Hootsuite booth? Like we had a great time doing that reaction ring game. That's it for me. So let's connect. Find me on LinkedIn. I'm trying to share more now. And yeah, I think we have some people joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Laura, so much. I do, if you have another minute to stay on, I have a question for you. Could you maybe walk us through a little bit of like how you guys make these plans? These ideas are awesome. Is it brainstorming? What is that sort of development process look like for you guys?
Yeah. So, ideally you almost want to have the idea before you work out the sponsorship, because something like that owlie with the sign, like I'm someone who is a bit of I play by the rules. I like to run it by the organizers, because, if you do something like that and you're a sponsor and you didn't run it by them, you can get in trouble. So ideally you want to do it then. A lot of times you have to sign up in advance. You don't have it. So we always kick off with a brainstorm. Like I pick people through our brand team. I always invite our social team because, like I said, they know the trends. And just I get a good group of creative people together, and, it's easier to work with people then because they feel part of it right from the get-go. It's like, oh yeah, we talked about that a couple months ago. And then when I'm in touch about creating social plans for the event, they already know. They've already been thinking about it.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. I think, because sometimes ideas can be really big. And, how are we harnessing the right people in the room to kind of turn that into a reality? And I also think what's really been interesting about your session compared to the other ones, I think we spent a lot of time talking about how to get people off of their phones and into the moment. But your strategy is get people on their phones and into the moment still as well, which I really, really like, especially, when so many of us have bosses and stuff who are like, how can we reach beyond the event? How can we reach more people? And they're putting these lofty goals in front of you to reach more people. And so it's helpful to kind of see this flip side of, sure, we want people to get off their phones, but we also need that social media engagement to sort of be a modern times.
Totally. So. And even I would say one thing I wanted to dive into today, but it's honestly a presentation itself, is social listening at an event. And, this is also great for the people planning the user conferences and stuff. And, real-time updates about what people are saying at your brand at the event and gathering data from that. That's very important to work closely with your social team, and they can monitor and engage on that. And they can, tell you things before they might happen too.
Yeah, for sure. I know I don't know all the trends. I'm a mom, so I don't know. But thank you so much, Laura. I will leave you now back into the wild. And I want to take a second to introduce Ricky. You have seen him on here before, but Ricky, why don't you take another second to introduce yourself to the group?
Of course, happy to. Hi, everyone. My name is Ricky Salguero. I am a senior event marketing manager here at Mesmo and excited to talk a little bit about the session that we just watched. Just to kick off, I am an event marketer of one at my company. So when Laura was sharing about talking to a social team, in my head, I was already translating it to, hey, pre-event, why don't I just do a quick little brainstorming session, maybe even 20 minutes with just the marketing team, see if they have any ideas instead of uh, typically just me putting the pressure on myself. You already see the cycles turning, and it's like okay, and it's not just doing the community for the event, but also, hey, us even as a single event marketer in my company, I have the community of my marketing team that I can lean on.
For sure. And I think that's so true. Not all of us have a social team. And I think that would probably be another question I would have for her is like, how do you, if you're just one person and you're trying to make these promos for your small company to go to this event, you have a ton of time. How do we speed these things up? Because editing videos, as we know, is extremely time consuming. Even me just making a reel on Instagram, I'm like, now an hour is gone. Oh my God. And it's just of my kid, and so like that it is a challenge, I think, for a lot of us. We want to expand more into social media, but it is so time consuming when we're very logistic oriented.
Definitely, I really feel that.
Yeah, for sure. And then also tracking. I thought, her having all the stats, like I would love to share that with like some of, my clients or my managers over time of I'm putting in this effort and yeah, it looks like I'm on my phone, but I'm actually over here creating moments, and then tracking that into actual data. I was at a conference in San Diego and one of the sponsors had, I don't want to say rented a person, that's terrible, but Ron Burgundy was rented, a lookalike, and he was just wearing their company tie and just walked around the conference. And so, I think that he got a lot of pictures with people, but were they actually tracking that to make sure that, people were actually participating and was the money well spent? So yeah, that's a concern.
Tracking and metrics, I already was thinking to myself, this is a great way to show the value to leadership. Hey, of this large conference, we own 25% of the traffic via this hashtag for the conference. So we're reaching beyond just that in-person experience. So I thought that was a wonderful justification that we could say, hey, this worked for us. Look why. Next year, maybe same budget, maybe a little more because you're seeing the value.
Yeah, and another thing that just doesn't cost any money is like getting your employees to post, getting the people who are attending the event to get on their social media, give them a little insight of here's what the algorithm would prefer to see from you, and give them some guidance, but get them activated on there too, sharing pictures that they take with their clients. I know some field marketers or sales reps who are really amazing at that, and then of course you have the total opposite who are just over there on their computer, and unless someone approaches them, they're not going to get off of it. So I think we need to get people more engaged, and I think how it's, not everyone's on social media. So, I think there is that other piece for sure, but I know most of us are. And so, especially if you go to events like this. So.
Yeah. And for empowering our own employees to be engaged on socials, I think a really great tip is saying, hey, here's a template of some ideas of what you can post. Because I know some of us may be very comfortable posting on social, others may not. So just starting those ideas and connections of like, hey, look, we took a picture together. Maybe you can post that. Or hey, you could just say, going to XYZ event. See you there? Question mark. So just creating small templates for them, it becomes more manageable and it also helps them drive an organic post from them. So it's like resonating in their voice and not.
And builds excitement for the event too, right? Like the event is also our partner. If we're working with them, we need them to work with us. And so it's super important that we're sharing, hey, we've been posting about you. We've been promoting your event because we're a really good partner with you. Well, Ricky, I know we are getting close on time, so I just want to say thank you so much for jumping on with us. Once again, we really appreciate you being such an amazing member of this community and supporting everyone on here. So thank you.